You've been lied to about the greatest engineering feats of the ancient world. Forget the Great Wall of China and the pyramids for a second, because deep in the rainforests of West Africa, there was a structure so massive it makes them look like child's play. I'm talking about the Walls of Benin, the largest man-made earthwork on the entire planet, and yet it's barely mentioned in your history books. My grandfather used to say that if you listen closely to the red earth of Edo State, you can still hear the echoes of the empire that built it. Imagine a network of walls and moats stretching over 16,000 kilometers. That's 4 times longer than the Great Wall of China. It wasn't just a fence, it was a sophisticated defensive system and a mathematical masterpiece. Built between the year 800 and the mid-1400s, these walls enclosed 500 independent communities. They weren't just piling dirt. The Edo people moved over 100 million cubic meters of earth. To put that in perspective, that's more material than was used to build the Great Pyramid of Giza, and they did this without heavy machinery, using only manual labor and a deep understanding of their environment. The walls were known as the Iya. They consisted of a deep ditch or moat paired with a massive inner rampart. This created a vertical barrier that was nearly impossible for invaders to scale. But the real magic wasn't just the size, it was the design. Benin City was one of the first cities in the world to be planned using fractal geometry. This means the city was laid out in repeating patterns that grew more complex as you moved inward, a level of mathematical sophistication that wouldn't be fully understood by Western scientists for centuries. This wasn't accidental, it was a reflection of their cosmology and social order. When European explorers first arrived in the 1600s, they were absolutely stunned. They didn't find a primitive village, they found a sprawling metropolis. They described a city with wide, straight streets that stretched as far as the eye could see, illuminated at night by huge brass lamps fueled by palm oil. The houses were polished until they shone like marble, and the people lived in a society so organized that theft was almost non-existent. It was a golden age of African engineering and urban planning. But then came the year 1897, a date that changed everything. The British Punitive Expedition didn't just come to trade, they came to conquer and dismantle. They were threatened by the power and independence of the Oba of Benin. They looted thousands of priceless artworks, the famous Benin bronzes, which are still sitting in European museums today. Then they set the city ablaze. They systematically tore down the walls and filled in the moats, trying to erase the physical evidence of a civilization that rivaled their own in complexity and surpassed it in scale. They wanted to rewrite the narrative to suggest that Africa had no history of its own. Today, much of that grand structure has been swallowed by the thick West African jungle or built over by the expanding modern roads of Benin City, but the legacy remains in the soil itself. We often think of history as something that happens to us, but the people of Benin show that history is something you build with your own 2 hands, shovel by shovel. They turned the very earth beneath their feet into a monument that could be seen from space if it were still standing today. It's a powerful reminder that Africa wasn't a dark continent waiting to be civilized. It was a global hub of innovation, mathematics, and architectural genius long before the first colonial ship ever spotted the Atlantic coast. We have to tell these stories because if we don't, they disappear like smoke escaping a dying fire. My grandfather once told me that a kingdom is only truly lost when its children forget its name and its achievements. We cannot let that happen to the Benin Empire. So let's make sure the world finally remembers the engineering marvel that was the Walls of Benin. If you think this incredible history deserves to be taught in every classroom around the world, hit that like button, share this video with someone who loves hidden history, and follow for more stories about the great empires the world tried to forget.